Welcome back. The UAE's financial markets are closed today. Trading will resume on Sunday. So with that, let's take a look at various currencies exchanged into dirhams, followed by the price of oil and a selection of commodities. Over in the United States, the Fed gave many of the country's largest banks the green light to restart dividend payments and share buybacks. It's a signal the government has greater confidence that the banks are now healthy enough to withstand possible future hits in the economy. Wells Fargo & Co. and JP Morgan Chase immediately announced dividend increases. Wells Fargo rose 1.5% to $31.83 US, while Dow component JP Morgan jumped 2.6% to $45.74 US. US stocks gained after a week of heightened volatility on Friday, but investors were reluctant to make big bets due to the situation in the Middle East and Japan's nuclear crisis. The S&P and Dow ended lower for the second straight week as volatility spiked. The two-day rally that ended the week wasn't enough to offset losses early in the week that briefly erased the index's 2011 gains. About 9.61 billion shares traded in composite action on Friday, more than average, but still lower than recent sell-offs. The Dow fell 1.5% in the week, while the S&P was off 1.9% and the Nasdaq, in its fourth straight down week, sank 2.6%. Brent crude was down 0.9% to $112.30 a barrel in volatile trading. The Group of Seven on Friday agreed for rare joint currency intervention, pushing the dollar higher against the yen and lifting Japanese shares. The dollar moved further off a record low hit Thursday of 76 yen as the G7 buying plan came as a surprise to global investors. Japan's finance minister said the Bank of Japan had begun selling yen, while other central banks would intervene as their markets opened later in the day. The first coordinated intervention in about 11 years aimed to tame the soaring yen, which could make it more difficult for Japan's export-dependent economy to recover from a spate of horrific disasters. Damage estimates from the earthquake, tsunami and nuclear power crisis now exceed $200 billion, potentially throwing the nation back into a recession. After losing more than $500 billion in value early in the week, the Nikkei jumped but still remains sharply lower since last Friday's disasters. The president of the European Central Bank, Jean-Claude Trichet, highlighted on Friday the importance of the world's natural disasters on international economies. Speaking at an economic conference in Frankfurt, Trichet said that the tragic events in Japan over the past week are a reminder of even greater threats, adding that the potential impact of the earthquake and its aftermath on both the Japanese and world economies is something to think about. Trichet also said that now is the time to push for far-reaching changes in the European Union economic framework. He also stressed the ECB's recent calls to strengthen new Eurozone debt rules, which are expected to be finalised by the bloc's leaders at a two-day summit in Brussels on March 24th and 25th.
And I have to say, on top of that, the tragic events in Japan over the past week remind us of even greater threats. The potential impact of the earthquake and its aftermath on both the Japanese economy and the world economy is something we will be thinking about deeply in the coming days.
After the break, we take a look at the day's sports news, so stay with us.